so we're gonna call ourselves in right at 5 o'clock on, I don't even know, Wednesday, July 26th. And thanks guys for coming to a meeting that's kind of out of our schedule. We had a couple things that needed to come up for us, so that's why we're here. I think we should start by recognizing not a visitor, but a new person at our table.
So I'd like to introduce Julianne Egan. Some of you may know her. You may have had their children in the past. Julianne has taken my spot as curriculum coordinator, is interested in the sort of administrative portion of the job. So she will be joining us here.
Regularly.
We'll let her decide regularly, but yes, regularly, as well as other board meetings to get the feel of how we work together.
It's really exciting.
Great, thank you.
Welcome. No other groups of visitors. So if we could look at the consent agenda and all of the warrants. And I guess we're not doing the payroll authorizations because they're crossed out?
Looks that way. I didn't see.
Have we already done those, or don't know why they would be crossed out?
I don't know. You'll have to look in the warrants and see if they're.
Are they in the warrants?
I think that single page, excuse me.
Just would like to make that
Yes,
right.
there is, well, those are the wire transfers. Yes, payroll,
Yeah, so we don't have to do this other one. We must have already done it.
yes.
Must have done
Yes.
it in June.
Okay. All right, so I would entertain a motion.
Move we approve the consent agenda, approve the minutes and financial reports.
Have it,
I need a second.
Second.
Wait,
got a
wait,
question.
Spoon first, a second.
A second.
There we are. Now it's, there you are.
The planning for the planning meeting was removed from this agenda? Is that what I'm reading right?
No, it's down
No,
on
it's
D, under new business,
Under new business?
8D, planning for planning meeting.
They just
Well,
moved
that's
it
what I
down.
have, but I thought like there was an email from Barb that
It's-
said there was a revision.
It's this one right here. They added the tax anticipation note as A
Oh,
and moved planning down to D.
oh. All
But
right.
while you're at it, one of the things that we just noticed over here was that we have not come back to something you've asked about before, Spoon, the Vermont Code of Ethics for School Board Members.
Oh, yeah.
We need to do that.
Weren't we all supposed to sign that?
Right, so I'm gonna put that down under unfinished business other, just to let you all know. So, can we approve the minutes and the warrants? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections, abstentions? Moving forward, let's go to committee reports, EES Policy Council. Let's start with you, Deb, because there were some things that came through that I sent out as a notification to everybody that had come through, and we wanted to have Deb's opinion and background on what we had seen. You could probably remind us all of what we saw a couple of weeks ago via email too.
Okay. So, if you remember a few months ago, I brought forward a request, an application, to reduce the number of home-based slots we have in early Head Start. And, along with that was, an action plan to address the fact that we have been operating the entire year under a goal, so the two go hand in hand. And in May, I attended a session in Boston with our regional staff where we basically stated our case, demonstrated all the efforts we've made to outreach for families and talked about the challenges which I shared with you. And so all of that was put into a document which we approved, and it was submitted and kicked back. And it was kicked back. The corrective action plan is fine. The request to reduce the enrollment was kicked back because the federal government wants a much more elongated narrated story, in my own words. And that's not a bad thing. It has created, it's provided fodder for some consideration amongst the management team at AES. And it's also bought us some time. So we really have until May to submit that revised request. And at this point, as of July 15th, for the first time in the entire year, for a moment, we were fully enrolled. And so I'm somewhat reticent at this point to move ahead so quickly with submitting that elongated plan. I will move forward and take the help that the regional office is offering to gather more data to state our case, but not behind the scenes, but in front of the scenes, continue to really try and fill those slots so that we don't, in the end, relinquish the slots. So that's the plan at this point. And we have been doing this, but we're going to, things change constantly in our community. And as one example, the retreat has a Suboxone clinic. And for many years, there was no place for children to sit while their parents received their medication. And recently they opened a drop-in center, sort of a drop-in childcare center, to accommodate that need. And so we are going to reach out. We're going to plant a worker there and see if we might be able to recruit some folks that we haven't been able to connect with. Now, the trick with that is that folks move in and out of recovery, and their children move in and out of foster care. And that's the challenge, is that we get one family in and one family out. It's like a constant revolving door. But we are going to roll up our sleeves and take advantage of the time we've been given to continue to pursue all the options, and then simultaneously I'll be preparing, getting more data. They want me to call and interview other providers in the area, and there's a whole list of things. When we were in Boston, I clearly stated our case, and they were impressed. But because this now gets bumped to a national level, and it's a serious thing to reduce slots, and so I don't disagree with the idea of buying more time.
So you'll keep us updated
I
as to
will.
what you find and
I will.
how it plays out.
Yeah, we have until, I think, May. Yeah.
One thought here, David, you were leaving early, was there
We
something?
have to leave around 4 to 6.
So are there things on the agenda you wanted to hear? I'm assuming that was one already, but
Yeah, well, obviously the things we have to act on, Act 46, the hirings, the next agenda items were, I think, the thing primarily I want to
Jill?
hear. Do we have a lot in between?
well, I know Andy has a couple things that we need to act on, right?
Yes.
And so maybe we'll do Andy next. Mark, you're being shoved aside. Sorry, is that okay? And Act 46 then, and then come back to Mark. And maybe we can
We
do
should do the
that
tax.
forward,
The tax,
We have to do that.
the tax, and also if we could do that ethics thing
Yes.
too, while you're here.
Sign
Okay, Spoon, you had a question?
Yeah, for Deb, does EES have any kind of hotline to the federal budget to anticipate what might be happening?
We do. We have a national Head Start Association that has built-in lobbyists, and they give us regular reports. The trend in the few months, in the past few months, has been that we're kind of under the radar, and we like it that way. So we've had bipartisan support for a number of years, and we've heard nothing that would challenge our funding or propose there be a reduction at this point, and that's probably the best we can hope for.
Okay, so then let's jump forward, Andy, to you.
Okay, so just start with hiring?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a little complicated. So if I'm not clear, feel free to interrupt me and I'll try to clarify.
And you have to speak up for the fans.
Okay. So first, Jill, on June 28th, you got a letter from Mary Ross.
Which I forwarded to all of you.
Okay, you all seen that, and so then you know that Mary was hired to be principal in Vernon. Okay, so
For 1 year.
for 1 year. So in order to do that, of course, you have to grant her a 1 year leave, which that was the letter that you got on June 28th. So you would have to act on that to approve her 1 year
So
leave.
let's do that. Can we take a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, check. So
That was clear.
Yeah.
that was clear, right? Okay.
Step 1 was good.
So, step 2, in 2A would be to grant Kelly Diaz a 1 year leave. Here, Kelly's also your board secretary at the time being, but she's a 3rd grade teacher, and she's requesting a 1 year leave of absence from 3rd grade so that she can be the assistant principal for this coming school year.
Can we have a motion on that one?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
So you're released from 3rd grade now, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're actually doing 2 things there.
Yeah, we're gonna do the next
Granting
motion.
her a leave, and you're hiring her.
We're gonna do that in another motion.
Okay.
So moved to hire Kelly.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Step 3.
Thank you.
You gotta be
Right.
fast. It's going, you gotta be fast.
No.
Used to be, you have to give you weight, but if you
Gotta be
wanna make a
fast.
motion, you gotta be fast.
So, and, Kelly's been doing an internship. She's in the middle of getting her administrative license. She's been going to Southern New Hampshire, SNHU, Southern New Hampshire University, to pursue a degree in school administration. She did an internship this past school year with me, and so she's continuing to pursue that. So it's good timing for the school and for her. So now you ask, well, who's going to
Go to
teach?
3rd grade.
Take Kelly's slot, and the answer is Kelly Juneau.
Oh,
So Kelly Juneau, and I'll pass her resume out to all of you.
why is the name from the?
And it's not,
She was already here.
yes, Kelly Juneau,
Last year.
Okay.
we had hired last year in 3rd grade as a 1 year interim to replace Deb Cardane, who was on a leave,
Yep.
professional leave, getting her PhD. So, and she did a fine job, so we have invited her to come back, with your approval, to teach 3rd grade again for, it'd be a 1 year contract, to assume Kelly Diaz's position. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yep, so can we have a motion on that?
Motion?
Spoon? It's too slow, Spoon. I tried to give it to you, and Kim jumped in. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, Andy, is Deb back? Is she finished?
Yes. Deb is back. She will be a 3rd grade academic support teacher, Title I teacher. And she'll be working with 2 3rd grade classrooms, and she is back. That position now will go to 4 days a week, not 5. It was a 5-day-a-week position. But she still is committed to pursuing her PhD at UMass. So, and you may recall, I think it was in January at Oak Grove, Deb and I presented to you, we wanted to create internship
I was
positions.
just thinking, how many did we have?
Right, so we have 4, and she will supervise them as well on that 5th day. So we have 4 interns who will be part-time paras and teaching interns, okay? And it's cost neutral to the district. And it's cost neutral because we took 1 para position, someone who left, retired, and we full-time para, and we cut the position in half. So we took that 1 position, and now 2 interns will assume that. And then Deb's 5th day, will not be going to her salary, it'll be going to 2 other part-time interns. So we're able to do that without any cost, any additional cost to the district, cost neutral. So we have 4 interns next year from Antioch who will be supervised by Deb Cardane.
So Kelly is still just 1-year position though,
Correct.
pending this Kelly
Right.
moving around.
Right.
And that kind of pendings as well with Mary.
Right. So with 1-year teaching positions, or 1-year positions, the person holding the position is not, does not have the opportunity to just have a, there's no contractual agreement. Their terminal contract, it ends June 30th, so they have no rights beyond that. If we want to get another opening, we could invite the person or we could hire them, but that's our option. They don't have any right to a position, on a 1-year position.
Did you have anything beyond hirings that needed action?
Yes,
Maybe we do that?
I have a bid for the electrical panel.
So at this point, I think I recuse myself and you
I
take over.
think you should, yes.
I don't have to leave though, right? I just shut my mouth and sit back?
Yeah, you shouldn't even discuss it.
Okay.
You should have no, and I think if anyone feels, so,
I can leave if anyone wants me to,
right, so I would, so just let me give you the background. So you may recall, we're replacing the electrical fire panel in the school because it's old and it by law, it must get inspected annually. And in the last inspection, there were some things identified that were problematic with it, so it needed to be addressed. So we were allowed to use it this past school year, but with the intention that we would address it at first opportunity. So the estimated cost for that was $30,000, which it's in this year's budget. So we created bid specs, went out to bid. We had three local outfits interested, and they came and they did a walkthrough on that. One of the companies is A.L. Tyler, which is Jill's husband's company, so therefore she should not participate. So if anyone feels uncomfortable even discussing it with Jill in the room, then Jill, I think, would volunteer to leave the room.
Anybody want me to leave? Speaking now?
She's fine.
All right. Yep.
All right, you can take it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'd watched on
I can watch it
TV
later.
afterwards anyway, so.
So we proceeded with the understanding that we could replace just the fire panel. And the reason why we thought it would be $30,000 or approximately that amount of money, because that's in the last year or so, the same exact panel was replaced at Green Street. Theirs stopped functioning, and they replaced theirs at, I don't know what it was, around $30,000, I guess. So that's how we got to $30,000. So what we didn't know was that what's changed from when they did their panel to when we did our panel is new codes. So the state fire marshal came in during the bid process and informed us that if we touch the panel, if we replace that panel, then we are required to bring all of the fire detection devices, all the pull stations, and all of the smoke detecting apparatus up to the newest code level. Okay.
Which is what happened to us last year as well.
Okay.
After we got the panel.
Okay. So there's additional costs. So for example, we don't have strobes in all of our classrooms. So and not all of our poll stations are ADA compliant. So we have to change all those out, and that will be an additional cost. And it looks like that additional cost will be another $10,000. The other thing we learned is that if we change out the panel, that we have to have a plan to do all the other work. We can't do the panel this year and then do the rest of the work next year. there has to be a plan, so the work gets completed in a relatively quick fashion. Okay. So, we have, so 3 outfits came, but only 2 delivered bids. The bids were due on Monday at 3 o'clock, no later
For
than
the
3 o'clock.
entire project, not just the original panel, but the whole.
Well, the original panel is what we went out,
Yeah,
because we didn't know about
yeah.
the additional issue until afterwards. But, so, one outfit, and I'll keep them nameless, dropped out. Or at least they did not submit a bid. So we're not concerned with them any longer. The 2 who did, both knew and had conversations with the state fire marshal. So know that they have to go beyond the panel. One of them gave us what it would cost in total. The other one did not. But we have a clear low bid of the two companies for the work. And one of the companies, though, gave us additional costs for that additional phase, and the other company did not. But nonetheless, we want to proceed with the low bid because it's significantly lower than the other, that we're assured that the additional will still be lower than if we go out to the other company. Does that make sense?
Which one was the one that gave the low bid?
Tyler?
I mean, was it the one that had the additional work on it, or the one that just gave the electrical?
No, the one that had the additional costs associated. But
Okay, so Andy, what was just the panel cost to both? Was one lower than the other one on the panel?
the 2 costs at because of, well, the 2 costs were $27,195 versus $30,295. So $27,195 versus $32,995.
And that's just for the panel part of it?
Well, yeah, and that's for the panel, and when we equalize the two bids, because it's a little complicated the way the way they responded to the bid. So when we sat down and tried to figure out, so that we're comparing apples to apples, we've got a difference of that $3,000. For the same work.
Okay.
Okay, and we're estimating that it would be is perhaps another 10 or so more to complete the work. Now, this work would be done during the summer. The other work would be done during school vacations, as could be done, and that does meet the approval of the state fire marshal. So to be exact, it's I think it's $3,900. $3,100.
So you're proposing 2, except the lower bid difference?
Correct. Which is Tyler, A.L. Tyler.
So when Andy and I met with Frank today, he wanted to point out that because this is pretty much considered an emergency project, you can approve it now. And if there are other things that have to happen, then Andy can go back to whom we think is the low bidder and say, this also needs to happen. Are there additional costs? But at this point, as Andy just said, Frank and Andy and I pulled out so that we were comparing apples to apples, because when the bids came in, they were not.
There's a whole bunch of problems with this, which I'm sure you're aware. One is that when you open a public bid, if somebody bids for the wrong thing, you could as much as eliminate that bid because it's not what was specified. And since we don't, even though we think it's 10,000, we don't know what's going to happen. And I think, well, two things. One is that we should have this in print. We should have those numbers right in front of us and know what we're talking about on this contract, or any contract where there's any questions like that. But I don't see how, when I understand that there's an emergency, but I think a potential can of worms if we accept a bid that's different than what we asked for, and because it's lower than the other one, and then there are additional costs beyond the expected $10,000, or that the other contractor says, well, we could have done it for less. Typically, if we accepted the panels, just the panels, and something came up, then we could say there are unforeseen developments, and we could give that to the contractor that's currently working. But to do it ahead of time, it's I don't know about the legalities of it, but it's an unusual way to do a contract.
Well,
I'm a lot concerned about it.
well, so the number that I gave you, the 3295 versus 27195, that is, they bid on the same thing. Okay, that's the panel and the existing devices that they would change out. Okay, so that was what was advertised. So the additional came in after the fire marshal came in. Tyler then took all the information from the fire marshal and said that here's the additional cost that I would do that for. Okay.
And who's the other contractor?
The other company is it's King.
Yeah. And did
Josh
they-
King
Were
Electric.
they approached with the additional fire marshal information?
Right.
Did they submit anything? Or were they asked to?
Well, we didn't ask Tyler to cost all that out because, again, it wasn't in the bid.
Right.
So, but once they became aware that the fire code had changed, then Tyler went beyond and cost all that out and gave us the numbers, what that would cost. And then if there was a couple of additional things, because there's still a few minor things that are unknown, listed out what the apparatus would cost. For example, what a smoke detector, horn strobe, and pull station would cost. Okay, if it went beyond what we believe is the accurate number. Okay, the other gentleman did the same thing, and his costs for those are significantly greater. So my understanding of those things, and like if you buy a horn strobe or a pulse smoke detector or a pull station, you're buying them from a supplier. Okay, so one marks that up. So I'm assuming that there's a higher markup with one company versus the other. Okay, so again, the two figures I gave you were bidding on the same things, but we have additional information for what those additional costs will be to bring the entire building up to code. Okay. Based on the information they gave, Tyler's would be less for that. Okay, and I would say if you're really uncomfortable with bidding on the whole thing, then we could the board could vote to accept Tyler tonight for just that amount, for the
We
those
could
two
approve
amounts.
a conditional on hearing from the attorney then, because I can't make that call and assuming why a bid is the way it is. I mean, the question is, can we do that? Can we legally do that? I don't know the answer, and maybe it's absolutely everybody else gets it.
So, I have been in these situations many times with renovations here and other Head Start sites in my career. And often this is the case that we start unappealing and realize there's much more to the project than we originally thought. And the guidance that we've always had from the federal government was that you award the bid on what the specs were advertised. And then there's a change order involved later.
So you're saying just ignore, for
You're-
now, the
you're-
cost of the additional work?
You're looking at what you bid, what you advertised, and what you received. And then you award that bid, and then if there are changes to the project, that's a change order that comes later.
That's right, thank you, Deb.
But is that, when there are when the changes to the, I guess where is this King outfit from?
Local.
From where, it's local?
Locally.
Oh, okay. And, so it's that everybody has to have equal opportunity to bid. And they have to have, so that's all, I mean, that's the issue, is that they all bid on the panel because they all had that information at the same time.
Correct.
And afterwards, you learn that more work has to be done. And the question is, were all of the bidders informed the same way at the same time about the additional work?
I think it makes sense if we just vote on the initial, work in the bid, and then maybe, like Dave said, have a lawyer review to make sure that everything's on the up and up, and we can discuss the next part of the project once it gets to the stage where they're gonna do that work.
I think that would be the prudent way. I mean, if the two bids are the same, they were what was spec'd, and one is lower than the other, we can approve it. And the rest of it just will unfold. I don't know that, if that's what we're doing, we can do that.
Because it will be taking place at a different time, it won't be during the summer, it will be over vacation during the school year.
Well, the rest of it
Right, the
will get spec'd out.
second
We'll be
phase
asked-
would be,
Yeah.
yes.
And we'll be asked
So they're
to-
different
To
phases.
approve the additional, the changes, unless it's not enough, do we have to worry about it?
Right, I mean, I would, that's fine, I don't disagree with going down that path. The only thing I would suggest is that, that you not put in there that, we'll get an opinion of a lawyer, but that this is what Frank does, this is Frank's job.
Right.
That you leave it to Frank if he feels uncomfortable, and feels like he needs legal advice, then I would leave that up to him. If he doesn't, then I would not.
Sounds good.
You want to make that a motion on it?
Okay, I move that we approve the bid from Tyler to do the fire panel.
Second.
Bid, yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Guess I'm not
And any
clear
ex-
exactly
any-
what you're approving. When you get done with your bid, or with your motion, I'm not clear how far you're approving to go. Just with what you were terming phase one, and then it has to go out to bid again? Or did you approve that it would go forward, as Deb explained, that it's one of those that you've approved the project, now the project's ramifications have changed because the code changed, so therefore you continue going on? Or are you guys saying it has to go back out to bid for the second project?
It doesn't have to go back up unless you don't like the.
So that was your motion? It's going
Yeah.
forward with the whole project,
Yeah.
just to be clear? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, any cost, any project can run over. And that's the deal you make with the contract. We just know this is gonna go over before we start.
So, just for
Make
sake
sure
of
it's
clarity.
clear. Yeah, it was a little muddled to
Clarity
me.
is important.
So, you're voting to approve Tyler to do the panel and all those things that were in the original bid spec, okay, to the tune of $27,195, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then for the additional work to get us in total compliance with the code, we are doing what?
You've approved that as well? That's what
Well,
you just
that-
said?
Well, we can't,
I think you approved that given Frank's comfort moving forward with that.
Is that what he was recommending? Just to
That was
approve the whole
Frank's
project?
recommendation, and to be exact, what Deb said, they would do a change order.
So we can approve or not.
May I ask this in a different way? We have a project, and we discussed it, and we discussed potential problems, and it appears that the motion, that the decision we might make is kicking the ball to the finance director to make the final decision on how to proceed. Have we, as a school board, discharged our responsibilities properly?
Am I allowed to come back in? I don't know.
I wouldn't,
Or that might be
I don't think you
directed
should.
towards Lyle?
yeah.
And I don't know the answer. I'm sorry.
I mean, this seems to me kind of similar to the playground thing, where you came with and asked for a certain amount to do the project now, knowing that this is phase one, and later on we'll be needing more money for the rest of it. But we didn't say approve blanket to whatever. I mean, is that normal to do a project approved on 2 different occasions?
Well, the difference here, Robin, is that the bid specs, because of the state fire marshal's information, have changed. So both outfits bid in good faith. One did a more on the additional work. One outfit, Tyler, did a much more thorough reporting of what that would cost. But that wasn't asked for in the bid, so that's not.
Yeah, we didn't expect that,
Right.
so it's almost like we shouldn't even know
But
that.
the other contractor did give you some idea of the costs per item, but just didn't give a whole itemized thing of doing the entire project.
Correct.
But if you were to multiply that by how many ones of each item you were to have, and then assuming the cost of labor was the same, it would still come out higher than what the Tyler bid was.
Right. Right, and we did that as best we could, and came to the conclusion that Tyler would be less expensive, not only for the board, but in the long run for everything.
So you need some assurance that the additional funds will be there, because you know you're gonna need them.
Right, so, but in
And
either
if they
case,
change
no
or
matter
not-
what, we know we're going over
Yeah.
$30,000, probably to the tune of 10 or so. So, and Frank has assured us that that's not gonna be a problem, but we didn't wanna do that without,
Right.
at least you know.
And Frank did look at it in a lot of different ways today, because I feel like Frank is very careful about making sure we're following the regulations. And he sent us away saying he felt comfortable that this was the right way to go. I think that if we go back and ask him, there were some concerns, just like Andy and Frank and I talked about, then I feel like he would still say, no, we looked at all the different aspects.
If you give me that, I have his email.
Okay. May we hear the motion again?
Do we need to revise?
Or is there
and-
anything
and-
else?
Or,
I think if we understand and say that clearly, and maybe have to make sure it's in the minutes, that we understand there'll be a change order, there are additional expenses based on the fire marshal's costs, and we'll work that out with the contractor that we approve. Just leave it at that, because that's typically
Yep.
the way it works. We just happen to know about the overruns
Right.
ahead of time.
So do we need any other motions on this, or is that
Do we-
discussion the
We're good.
final approval?
Lyle said we're good.
Okay.
So you have to stay on.
All in favor?
I
Any
Recusement.
opposed? Any abstentions?
That's me,
Okay.
right?
Yes, so it's passed.
So we're back.
Yes, we're back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to do the tax?
We need to do
What time are you
so that
leaving?
Dave can get
I
out
want
of
to
here.
do
He's got
the
like about 5-10
tax
minutes.
thing, but I also want to do the Board of Ethics. deals while you're still here, David? We've postponed this several times over.
I'd rather postpone that to 46.
Well, let me ask you all this. Do we have more discussion on this? Because it's, what was lacking was not signing it.
I don't think there's any more
I don't think
discussion.
so.
I think
So
it's just
that's
signing.
it.
Yes.
Pass it around and sign.
No, I think we have to sign the originals.
Sign the original, okay.
Do you all want copies again, or?
Those are,
Yeah,
just
sure.
copies.
Okay, so let's do the tax
Yes.
deal.
Okay, so this is routine, you've done it in the past. Property taxes are not collected until September, but we need to be able to fund payroll in July and August. So Frank projects the cash flow, sends that analysis to People's Bank, and then People's substantiates a tax anticipation note. So it's what you've done in the past. You will need to make a motion to approve the tax anticipation note and the resolution to borrow $1,470,000.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Are we all clear on what this does? Anybody need any background? Maybe Robin and Spoon, because it's a little bit different, but is it clear?
I think so.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're good on that. That brings us to Act 46.
So there are some places, all the board signs, but there are specific places for Spoon to sign because
Okay.
he's the clerk.
Spoon, you get clerk's signatures on this when you look at it, but I'm gonna hold that so I can concentrate for a second. It's too much to think. So everybody was forwarded the latest reincarnation of the Articles of Agreement. It was felt by the Act 46 Study Committee that we wanted to send them out one more time to everybody's boards, the individual boards, to make sure that there were no questions or things that you would like to have brought back to the study committee, and then it will be sent up. We have voted, as I understand it, to send it up to the,
Yes.
so this would be the last chance that the boards would have to say anything that they would like to have changed before it is sent up to the state for its blessing and approval. And then there will be a time of the board, the Act 46 Study Committee members, at least the chair and maybe a couple other people, answering any questions that they have during their process of blessing it and approving it.
The Board of Education.
Board of Education, and then it would go to the voters of all the towns to have their voice. So, I don't know. I think we've read this and seen this several times. I think, and the only things that I would point out perhaps is that at our last meeting, we did do a couple of updates. Not really anything hugely different. One thing is that we did leave everyone on as necessary, and no one is on as advisable. Each board will talk that over. I think we all expect that Dummerston may come back and say they should be advisable. And then the study committee will discuss that, I guess. And we have added, I think mainly we looked at Article 15, which is, right?
Where we changed the number of people. So each board gets to choose,
Oh, the leadership
the
council.
leadership councils, right? Each board gets to choose how many people they would like on their leadership council, how many staff members, that type of thing.
Not each
before-
board, because the board was.
Sorry, each faculty council. In the past, there had been a certain number assigned, and towns felt very strongly that they would like to be able to decide how many members they want.
So it now reads at the beginning of Article 15, which is on page 9, the Unified District Board shall develop policies and procedure that encourage local input. And local input is still advisory because they're not boards with power to make, the unified board's making the final decisions, but they definitely have more ability to choose how many people come. And one of the things we did talk about specifically for Brattleboro is if each school has a leadership council, we would, and you say 3 people from each of that would be, which is still fine if we wanted to do that, but that would be 3 leadership people for Academy, 3 for Oak Grove, 3 for Green Street, 3 for EES, presumably 3 for BUHS, and 3 for BAMS, and 3 for perhaps the regional center as well. So it got to be a lot of people that maybe it might be hard to find. So we were kind of thinking some flexibility in that might be good in Brattleboro's case. And some of the other towns kind of seem to feel that they might want more than just 3, and there might be more people wanting to come forward. And if they wanted that, then why not be able to have it? So I don't know if there's anything else that was really that big of a decision.
I sort of unilaterally made the decision to go in and make it consistent. In some places we had it unified board, in some places we had it district board, and in some places we had unified district board. So I went through and made it consistent, unified district board throughout the full document.
So I think that's it. Are there any comments from us that we want to bring back to the study committee? We'll take them down and make sure they go back. No? Spoon, are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I'll vote.
There's no vote.
Oh, there's no vote?
And we don't vote on any of this.
Oh,
Well,
we
the
don't-
school board doesn't, but you do as an individual voter.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Once it gets to the
Yes.
polls.
Yeah,
Well, I wanted
yeah,
to talk about
I mean,
something else
you know,
related to it.
It just,
Once this is done.
it's out of our hands. My only thought is that I was never satisfied that the whole Act 46 was ever justified. Period.
Okay, so I'm going to take back to the study committee that we have no comment. Well, I guess I've looked this way. I'd like to look this way as well.
Yeah.
Administrators, if there's anything that you all have for comments on the articles of agreement that you wanted to have brought forward from concerns, changes that you see.
Well, I'm assuming that that team at each school would be an opportunity for parents.
As it is written
Certificate
now,
degree.
we went back in. I think that was one thing that we put back in and didn't just make it community members, but we made it
Parents as well.
And
Right there. Parents and other community members.
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea to have community members, but I think it'd be wise to really encourage many of those slots going to parents.
And part of that we actually based on the Head Start federal guidelines that do ask for community input, parental input, administrators input. There was a lot of discussion at the last meeting whether or not principals should be a part of that. But in the end,
Part of
we
what?
Of the leadership council, and in the end, we
I don't know how you
said
how
yes.
how it could be otherwise.
I think the concern was that if the community didn't like where the principal was leading, there should be a way for the community to bring that forward. I think that was their concern. But
But I would assume that group, that council, right, of parents, community member, that the only way they can really be involved in the school and to some level to be informed, and if they're at a level involved in any kind of decision-making process, you have to have the principal part of that.
that was kind of the argument
That's
that went forth, yeah.
that.
Right. That if the principal is the main leader in the school, the principal needs to be a part of the leadership council. But we also felt, or we hoped, as a study committee, that the leadership council wouldn't be every meeting wouldn't be led by the principal. It's not necessarily the principal's job to lead that group. Although in some cases, maybe the principal would be the one
Maybe
that
the
felt.
principal wouldn't have to come.
Well,
Maybe they
we
could
thought
be
he should
required.
come.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference in that the principal has to lead it as opposed to that the principal has to be part of the group.
Right. And we went with principal has to be a part of the group, not has to lead it. And some folks were suggesting perhaps the principal be invited but not be a part of it officially, but in the end, we all went with be a part of it officially.
Yeah, I think if you're defining roles, the principal has to be
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
has to be
100%.
there. And then how it's structured, there may be a group that there's a real strong facilitator and principal's perfectly willing, hey, this is me down to facilitate, this is all well and good. Or there may be a group that's not very strong and the principal has to facilitate. You want productive meetings that are goal-oriented.
A question for you that comes up in my mind is, to me, the Leadership Council, and of course I speak for Academy having been here, but to me it's kind of the ACT group that's already existing, or in Green Street, kind of the parent group that's already existing, except with a few more defined things that they do. And we've listed out, I believe we termed them suggestions in the end, but they would be, the responsibilities shall include the following: assist in coordinating local school committees and advisory organizations, including the parent-teacher group, endowment committees, food committees, etc. Provide recommendations to the superintendent on budget development, capital investments, including buildings and ground projects and technology and library resources. Make recommendations to the superintendent and principal for school-specific practices and procedures related to district policies. Recommendations could include, but not limited to, facility use, technology acquisition, school-based activities. Consistent with state statute and procedures established by the superintendent, serve on interview committees for school staff and faculty, coordinate and review individual school performance data with the superintendent, and provide yearly activity reports to the superintendent. And then we also were very careful to put in here that the Unified District Board shall regularly send a representative member to individual Leadership Council members' meetings. So, and to abide by the code of conduct that's established and adopted by the Unified District Board, such as what we just signed here, that Leadership Council would be responsible perhaps for confidential information, and we wanted to make sure that they had some guidelines to follow as well. But the idea would be that the local group then would definitely have a feedback to the larger board and vice versa, so it was not just individual. Any other thoughts, Spoon, over there?
Well, first on what you were saying, Andy, that the principal has to be there. And to start with, this whole thing of the Leadership Council is brand new, and there is nothing there's no reason that a principal has to be there. I think a principal ought to plan on being there at a Leadership Council meeting. And that's all that I think is necessary, that they should plan on being there, and unless they're for some reasons informed that this meeting, we're not talking about anything that involves you don't have to come.
But the principal's the person who knows everything that's going on in the school.
Well,
I mean, the only person
think there's a difference
who knows
between-
every single thing.
Spoon, there's a difference between having to be at a particular meeting and having to be on the team. And the principal is absolutely 100%, in my opinion, has to be part of that leadership team. There may be meetings that the principal doesn't make for one reason or another, but the principal,
So
school
what?
leadership has to be part of it.
So if the parents don't like the principal, they have to meet in secret and to discuss their issues.
Why couldn't they just discuss it openly with the principal?
Exactly.
Well,
I mean, that's
ultimately
what
they
we
will.
have here on our board.
Yeah.
We don't have to meet without the principals here. If there were anything to come up, I would assume that the board would not change configuration because we don't want to hurt the principal's feelings. I mean, right?
Plus, we have a complaint policy that if parents were upset or not liking an administrator, then they would follow the policy by first going to the administrator and discussing the disagreement. If they didn't get satisfaction, they come to me,
Yeah.
discuss it. If I
And
don't give
that-
them, they
yeah.
come to you and
Right.
discuss it.
But before they go to you with a complaint, they will have to meet without the principal to talk about what they want to do. And that's fine. There's no reason,
Well, I
No,
think
but
that
that's-
what
that's-
she's saying is that the complaint would be if there was something that would come from a parent, presumably, or perhaps a community member, that the first step would be for them not to go to the leadership council.
Right.
That's sort of like a school board-ish organization, but to first go to the superintendent.
First the
And then-
principal.
First, the principal,
The
to
principal,
see if they
sorry.
can work out the
No, I
Go to the principal
disagree
directly,
entirely.
then if that was unsatisfactory, the superintendent, and then the third path would be to go to the board, at which point the principal and the superintendent already know about the problem, so there would be no point in meeting without them present.
So you can disagree, Spoon, but that's the established policy that's already adopted for the schools.
Okay, that's the policy, but if
Right.
I was a parent and I'm hearing from my child and I'm saying, something is seriously wrong here, first thing I'm gonna do is call another parent or a friend or somebody else who is in the school and say, what do you know? And I would get, before I proceeded with anything, I would be talking with several of the parents to see whether I'm off base here, I'm not hearing right, this isn't really true, or maybe another parent says, my kid has been bringing back the same sort and there's a problem. And so 3 or 4 parents have to make some phone calls.
So who are you gonna call?
That's not the leadership council
But
process.
So
and
who
that's-
you're gonna
Yeah.
call?
And that can happen now, it
Well,
does, and that can happen forever. That's the
then-
parent's prerogative.
So in other words, then the parents have to independent, so what is the leadership? I'm just trying to figure out what parents do when some problem arises and they're not sure, nobody's ever sure whether it's unique to one situation or it's something systemic in the school.
So I think what you're describing is exactly what does happen. You check with a couple friends or whatever, but the policy that's established forces you, if you really have a sincere concern or a complaint as a parent, if it's with the child's teacher, you go first to the child's teacher. If you're not getting satisfaction with the answer there, you take it to the principal, that's the person that's in charge of that school. If you don't get satisfaction there, you raise it up to the superintendent level. And if you're still not happy, you take it to the board. There's a policy a chain of command, so that people move through that process in a more reasonable way.
Now, the parents might not know that that's what it is, but if they come to a leadership council person or a board member and say, hey, this thing happened in my kid's class and it was really not cool, then the board member is supposed to say, you need to talk to your kid's teacher. But they can take that knowledge of, like, 4 people have said to me, blah, 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 then maybe there's a wider issue, but the role of the board member or leadership person is to inform the parent of what the chain of command is and where they should start addressing the problem directly at the source.
And this has happened in the past.
Yeah, a number
David's
of
gonna
times,
say.
and we've had this conversation a number of times. I just want to point out that it's way off of the Act 46, and we will have this conversation more times because it's always what are the roles, what are the responsibilities in different circumstances. But I would ask that we come back to Act 46 because I think that's another thing I want to talk about.
So we don't have any other comments for Act 46 to come back to the study committee. So then David, go.
Yeah, because they're done, the articles are done, and they're going to the board, they're going to come back and it's going to be a vote. I would like us to, I think it would be prudent for us to anticipate that if the vote is defeated, we're going to need some alternative. And Dummerston is already involved in exploring alternatives. There are a set of guidelines out, the rules are out, there are some examples for other supervisors unions and some templates that have been created to develop alternative governance structures. And I would like to actually move that we ask Dummerston if we could send 1 or 2 members to join their alternative governance structure. They have, I think they call it a subcommittee, and join that exploration and start looking at developing alternative proposals if the merger is defeated.
So that's a motion.
That's motion.
Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I support that we should start learning about what the alternatives are if we need to turn to something. And there's no reason not to become. I mean, I don't know. I think, Dave, if I understand, you're just trying to make it have the support of the board.
Well, the board is gonna have to.
Because obviously
if
you
it's
could go, I
defeated-
could go, anybody could go and sit with the dumbest
Oh, yeah.
people right now.
But if the
You know, they-
merger is defeated, the boards have to figure out what's next. And one of the, what's next is going to be the alternative structure. I know that the committee has looked at it in some ways and decided that that's not a viable structure. The evidence around the state is that that's not the case, and it is one of the never students exploring it. And I want us to be a part of that, I want us to be ready for if it's defeated.
The vote is
It
in
seems
November?
prudent to have an alternative underway. If it gets passed, it won't matter. It's just a waste of time.
Just to answer Spoon's question, the vote is in November. There's several steps that have to happen, but the intention is for the vote to be in November, yes.
All right, and then, who is actually voting? All the citizens?
Yes.
Yep.
Of all the towns.
Of all the
It's an
towns?
Australian
Okay,
ballot.
Okay.
Except for
Yeah,
Vernon.
Except for Vernon. It's an
And-
Australian
And
ballot of the 4 towns.
What are the steps, my first question is, the vote right now is intended to be simultaneous with the normal election day.
That's the hope.
And if for some reason it's not, then all the towns have to have a separate election day.
We would all have to have this election on the same day, on some
the
day
same day,
other
on some
than.
other day.
Right.
And you will also be, if you choose to run for the
Unified board.
unified board, you will have had to submit.
Same election.
Yes, you will be running for a position on the unified board at that same,
Oh, at
in
the
the
same
same
time the
election,
elections
yes.
are going.
Yes.
Yeah, they go for the same
Because
time.
the new board has to be
Well, that's
The way the
interesting.
law is
elected
written.
at the same, it's the way the law was written, not the,
So if we, if
So you
people
could-
run for the unified board,
And the merger doesn't go through, you
Through.
would be on a board that doesn't exist. So then you're no longer on a
and will
board.
there have to be new elections for a new board? when
No,
the final
because these
doesn't
boards
exist?
still
This
exist.
will
yes,
just
this
remain
board,
if-
yes.
Uh,
But will
merger
this will
passes,
dissolve if it
the
passes,
merger-
then it becomes the other elected board?
If it passes, there's a year's transition.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
create the new district.
Not quite a year. I think it's operational by
Well, it'll be July, yeah,
right?
because the
Okay.
vote's not.
So November to
About
July.
7
It used to
months.
be the votes were in July, so there'd be a year,
Yeah.
but so it will be less.
Well,
Anything
what
you
would
want to-
happen if it's voted
Chiming in.
down?
I
And
will
if
tell
we
you.
do nothing now, and just say, forget it, let it unfold, and then we make no preparations or anything, and it fails, what happens then?
Then the state board would come in and probably review the articles that we've already submitted and make determinations, most likely off of those articles.
I think it's
If we
really-
don't have anything
Yeah,
to,
if we do nothing,
if we do nothing.
we don't know. And I
Right.
think it's important not to speculate. We have
Right.
a lot of speculation along the way, and what we think the state board might do or might not do
Right.
is not a great
Yep.
idea. We have to sit down, if it's rejected, then we have to sit down and decide how we want to deal with that 46. Do we want to reform a study committee and look at a different kind of merger? Do we want to explore an alternative structure? Do we want to just wait and see what the state comes up with? We
Okay.
don't know.
So-
But there is a
boards have to-
deadline.
You're not saying the same thing, you two
Well-
are not
No,
saying
we
the
are,
same
right.
thing.
I think they are, I mean, David's right. There's speculation when people say the state board will do this or that's an opinion, and we don't know what a state board will do.
But the
But we
laws-
do know that the law is there, that by November 30th, it says that the state has to come in and do something.
No, it's after November, well, I don't know which November it is, November 30th.
This
The
year.
proposals have to be, of this year, proposals have to be in if you want any
Oh, sorry.
consents.
Right.
If you want to do an alternative, the first draft of that has to be in, I think it's
I think it's
December
December,
26th, so
yes.
it's like a month
It
later.
might be like a
But when
couple
does
of
the
weeks
state have to
after.
come
So
in?
if we had
So-
a vote, the vote would be this November, we're talking about 2017?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
And
right.
say that the vote, one of the towns didn't vote to merge and then the whole thing isn't gonna happen, then we would have like a month to propose an alternative structure after that.
Or some other,
Deadline?
or something else.
Yes.
If
Well,
some
some
great-
alternative.
Some
We would have
alternative.
1 month to make some other proposal to hit that next deadline.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So it does seem like it makes sense for people to be getting on this other committee as a contingency plan so that in 1 month we can come up with something.
What were you gonna say, Lyle?
So if by November 30th, there has not been a positive merger vote, and you have not had an alternative plan sent to the state, then supposedly, according to the statute, the state will come up with a plan for any unmerged. But as I think David, I'm not sure if you said it, or we don't know what that is. So we can't say that, oh, they're going to come in and merge us as our articles, or we can't say that they're going to split us. We just don't know. So that's the big unknown.
I think that's
But
a
that would
reasonable,
only happen
if
if
we
we-
do nothing, I think that's a reasonable assumption, that they would say, well,
I
you've
would
got these
assume.
articles,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
do that. But it's not a given, and there are
Correct.
alternatives. And I think having alternatives is, I mean, what if what if 3 or 4 towns hold it down and nobody wants it, then the state's not gonna. So, I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen, that's the point. And if we wanna have any control over it, then the whole purpose of the study committee of your work was to have control over what happened under Act 46. And if it's not gonna be a merger, I think we wanna have some say over what is gonna happen. The alternative structure will allow us to decide how we wanna change the supervisory union, how we want to enhance the function of the supervisory union so that it meets the goals of 46.
So I just have to comment, as someone who's sat on that for 2 years now, I think it's full 2, isn't it? That we've been sitting there and looking at it and going over all the different discussions and all of the different data that we've looked at, and it's reams of data. And to me, we have done what we've looked at other alternatives. We've looked at, people have said at the beginning, slow down, what's the rush? It's 2 years of study. It's not rushed. It was, to me, I feel like we've done this. We've listened to it, to public comment. We've researched. We've figured out what's the best way for, to serve, not just to find a merger, but to serve the needs that we identified that are not being met, to balance out the inequities that we did find, and to be the most responsible unit that's educating all the kids in our supervisory union at the best affordable cost to our taxpayers for all of us. For me personally, I think we've done that over the last 2 years, and that we've come up with the best possible way to address that. So I'm not.
Does the study committee have a preferred plan B if this vote doesn't go as planned?
We were tasked with finding the best that we thought we could. That's what we've done. Do I think it's going to go through? I don't know. There's clearly, to me, the discussion we should be having is whether we should bring back a discussion of saying that Dummerston should be advisable, or somebody else should be advisable, or everybody should be advisable, and we should just join with whomever comes together under these terms. Because to me, we've come up with the best terms. I don't see Dummerston excited about merging, so I don't know that it'll go through. If we leave it as it says right now, everybody has to merge. I don't have any confidence that Dummerston's going to say yes.
So what would you and the committee think would happen after that? If you're, I mean, it does seem unlikely that Dummerston's going to be like, yes, let's merge, from the way that they've been voting in the past. I mean, then what happens? I mean, as we just discussed what happens, but like, on the research that you guys have been doing for 2 years, does the committee have a formal plan or opinion on what to do if Dummerston doesn't want to merge?
Do you have an answer for that, Lyle?
I don't think we've really.
I think the answer is we don't have a plan after that, because the task was come up with the best
Okay.
way to meet the goals of Act 46.
I don't think there's any question that you came up with the best way to meet the goals. Whether the best way to meet the goals is what the communities that have to make this decision want is in question. And we don't know what that decision is going to be. But if they say no, I just think it would be imprudent of us to not have thought about and made some efforts toward a governance structure that's going to meet the needs of the goal, meet the goals, and get the same results. And I know you don't think there's no question that's the best under the law for mergers. But there's also a part of the law that says you don't have to merge. You can have a supervisory union with member districts if you meet the goals. And the committee has not looked into how to meet the goals. There's been a conclusion that we won't be able to. That, well, any number of reasons for that. But the point is, the law
Yeah, I
exists,
disagree that we haven't looked at that. I think we have.
and people are looking at it, and there's a lot of information, a lot of options and alternatives, and we want to have something. I want to make sure we have something to go forward with if this doesn't work, if this doesn't work. So that's the purpose of the motion.
So before you take your vote, this will be an official subcommittee. You will have to make sure that those meetings are warned, and you will have to make sure that minutes are posted. So,
Is
just
that
so
what
you know.
Dummerston's doing?
They will now, because Christina was in touch with the Secretary of State.
So do we have more discussion?
So this is a committee that is right now just Dummerston by itself?
Dummerston has a subcommittee, and I'm asking them to send 1 or 2 people to join them and try to work to develop a viable alternative explorer.
And did you want to be the
Yeah, I'd
person?
love to, yeah. But
I mean-
we have to decide to do it first,
Right,
I think.
okay.
I think we need to vote if it's
Right.
yes or no.
I mean, we're just voting to send one of our members to participate or listen in these discussions.
I think we're voting to create the subcommittee first.
Okay,
Yes,
Well,
we
would you-
need to
would you
vote that
read,
first.
What I said, 'cause I think I know what it was, but.
okay.
That, yes, you moved to join Dummerston as an official subcommittee to talk about alternative structures. Spoon seconded the motion, then this discussion ensued. And I listed everything that you've just discussed.
So read it one more time, that we're voting to form a subcommittee? No.
Well, we have to ask Dummerston if they want.
Right, so
but
David
that's
moved
different.
to join Dummerston to talk about alternative structures. And you stated that it would have to be, Lyle stated that it would have to be an official subcommittee with meetings warned and minutes posted.
So I guess I would want you to amend that motion to make it a subcommittee. To state that in
Okay,
there.
so, so I guess it would be
It'll be legal.
to ask Dummerston if they would join us to form an official subcommittee to explore alternative government structures.
So then we don't have to have a second or anything, right? That's just a friendly. So my next question is, why are you only meeting with Dummerston? If we're in everybody in the supervisory union?
We can only, there may be other boards that want to do it, but we can't tell them to do it.
But this is an already existing thing that.
Yeah,
So it
it's-
seems
it's-
like if
it's not the way
if it's
it's
our
done.
board that is concerned about what's going to happen to Brattleboro town schools, that we make our own subcommittee, and that you have your own meetings of whatever, and you join with whomever else it is, and you wouldn't specifically state in the motion that it's Dummerston. Because maybe next week it's not Dummerston, maybe
Putney
it's
wants to do
Putney,
it.
and maybe it's
So we explore,
Vernon.
What does it say now? If we took Dummerston out and not just said other towns.
You guys are making me work tonight.
Happy
Hey,
summer.
David,
You always get it, you always get it right.
David amended the motion to state that he would like to join with Dummerston as an official subcommittee to discuss alternative structures. So I could replace Dummerston with
Foreign
surrounding
officials.
towns or,
With other school boards,
okay.
school districts.
and it doesn't even have to be in the supervisory union.
Not necessarily.
So yeah.
Other school boards.
I have to comment though, I think that voting for this means that we think that the merger is going to fail. It doesn't necessarily mean we think the merger's bad, but it means that we're thinking the merger's going to fail. That we don't have confidence in the merger.
Well, that's not what the vote says. I mean, that's not the purpose of, it's if the vote doesn't. We don't know if it's gonna or not, and whether we have, it doesn't matter what we think is gonna happen, what's gonna happen is gonna happen. And if we're not prepared for it to be voted down, then I don't think we're being, what's the word?
Prudent was
Well,
Speno's word.
prudence, yeah.
I think prudent is a very good
Goes
word.
along with wise, I'm thinking about
Practical.
the fiscal, our duty, you know.
It seems like what Jill's
would be
getting at is that
non-feasible.
if we were to show that we're making a backup plan, then what message is that sending to the voters about what we think of the proposed plan that's gonna be on the ballot in November? Is that what you're kind of
That's it.
suggesting?
Well, would it become an either or? Tonight, we hired Kelly, assistant principal. If you didn't approve I didn't have a backup plan.
Right.
So if I had a backup plan, then it would have been, and I told you, then I would have been, well, you can approve Kelly or approve this other person X, right? Like, I mean, I think strategically, when you're trying to move something like a vote, if you come in with, well, if this fails, this is what's going to happen. Here's this alternate plan. It's not an alternate plan, it's an option. You have option A or option B.
If it fails, something is gonna happen.
And the risk
Right.
is
One
that
option is not
people
fair.
might like the other option.
Well,
if
or
it's
enough.
this other option wouldn't be on the ballot, it would just be a committee that talks about stuff,
Yeah.
but, I mean, in the case of, not to get personal, but there was just no reason to think anybody would say anything but yes to Kelly, so that would have been silly to, pursue another candidate.
Right.
In this case, based on the way that the other towns have kept on voting, it does seem like there is a risk that even though the voters of Brattleboro are in favor of this, that the Dummerston vote keeps on, by the fact that they were refusing to release Vernon, seems like they don't want to proceed. So there does seem to be a significant risk, not that we don't think it's a good plan, but like, what if Dummerston still says no, then we can't.
Well, and part of the
Yeah.
way to address that is that we go back to the study committee and say, we think that Dummerston should be put on as advisable
Okay,
instead of, and then.
and that's what it means, that they don't have to be.
They could say
can
no.
leave and we'll still form. with
And
the
then
committee
That's not,
after.
Guilford-
that's not in my motion. If you wanted to move, you go back, or you wanted to say that we should go back to study, you can do that. You can do that. My motion says to work, to try and develop an alternative proposal across the merger district.
Right, but it's
And
still
if it-
valid discussion.
Well, if we're going to talk about Dummerston being advisable, we need to also know that if we make Dummerston advisable, they do not need to warn it, and that puts an end to everything. If Dummerston votes no, either as advisable or as necessary, that puts an end to everything. So making Dummerston advisable has
Why
its
is it put
own,
an end to everything? What do you mean by
Its
that?
own liability.
it has its own liability, because we cannot move forward if Dummerston is made
Because
advisable.
Vernon is out of the
Yes,
district.
but it says if a town is advisable, they do not have to warn, and all towns have to warn the article and vote on the same day.
Plus, we then lost 2 of the 5
Right.
districts in the merger anyway. We're not anywhere near having all of this, that goal of the government.
Not suddenly more complicated, it's always been complicated. It's very-
It's never been, it's never been.
Exactly, this is
Yeah.
never
The fact there
been.
was a committee meeting on it for 2 years sort of implies a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So I feel like that whole conversation is very different from what David's proposing.
It is,
Yeah.
but I think it addresses what Robin was saying before, of the perception of what we're saying to people, what Andy was noting. If you're saying, well, Brattleboro's already voting to go look at some other type of thing and to put their, now that the study committee's done, they don't have much faith in it, so they already want to do a backup plan. You could see that as a note of non-confidence. You could see it as a way that we're really being intelligent. You could take it either way. I don't know how voters take it. That was my whole point, like you said.
I'll go with
Yeah,
the positive,
I mean-
that if we're being intelligent.
We're just looking at what this implies to the voters of Brattleboro. Are we? Or are you talking about,
That's our charge.
right?
That's our charge.
Because it doesn't seem like there's been, in the public sentiment of Brattleboro, hesitation to merge. Am I wrong about that?
There's some. There were signs at our last meeting. A bunch of them were Brattleboro people. David was one of them.
There's lots of.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of opinions, but I just didn't get the impression that this was gonna fall because of Brattleboro. It's like whether Dummerston agrees to do it or not, essentially.
I think it's speculation on anybody's point, but if you look at the votes of who refused to let Vernon out, it was Dummerston. The rest of us said yes, that seemed like the right thing, although
Yeah,
that's a
I mean,
different
maybe
issue.
I'm just making assumptions based on that vote
Right.
of what the public sentiment is.
Spoon?
Well, I'm not, I suppose there's some logic to having a backup plan as far as implying that your own plan, but it would almost have been as if they decided not to put lifeboats on the Titanic because they knew it couldn't sink. As if because they put lifeboats there, they acknowledged that it could sink.
But they didn't put enough.
I suppose you could look at it like that, that every time every time you have a plan B, you're saying that you're not 100% that your plan A will work. And that's true. We're not 100% sure that plan A is going to work. And if the voter, I'm not worried about I don't think the voters are going to, I don't even know how many voters are going to know that there was a plan B, let alone be concerned that there is one, if they did know.
I mean, you could sort of spin it as like, this is Brattleboro's learning about alternative structures and still recommending the merger. Doesn't necessarily have to mean we don't like the merger. It could mean we're just looking at everything and this is still the choice that we are putting on our ballot.
I think it's important that, important clarification is that the school board doesn't recommend anything about this. The study committee recommends it.
Oh, right.
So we're not recommending anything. Well, I mean, what I'm suggesting we do is look at
You could recommend
look
something
at
goes back
the
to the study
alternative
committee.
in case.
We could
Basically
have
have
an
a
opinion
backup.
as a study.
As opposed
We could have an opinion as a school board that says we believe
Yeah,
in
we can
this.
vote on whether we want to support it or not.
We
We have to do
could.
this motion first.
Yeah.
Exactly,
to do
but I
this
mean,
way.
we could. There's no reason we couldn't, but we haven't
It
done
doesn't
that.
mean anything.
No, except for,
Something that can be talked about to
Yeah.
influence voters.
but it doesn't influence anything. The only thing that we do as a board is what, we have been doing, which is send the communication back. So is there any more
35
discussion?
minutes. Oh, good,
Yeah.
great. So that's
So I guess we take a vote. We're gonna do a roll call vote. David, you're voting in favor of your motion.
yes.
Robin?
I'll vote yes.
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 I really don't know.
I know.
I like backup plans, but I don't like the message it sends.
I'm viewing it as it's prudent and it's the smart thing to be looking at. And it's not saying anything.
So my vote doesn't matter anyway, so I'm not gonna vote because I can't figure out what to vote. How's that for safe? It doesn't matter. So that motion carries. All right, you need to go, David?
I do, yeah.
So we'll go back to the regularly scheduled meeting.
Ideas for the planning meeting.
Oh, wait, we should talk about who's gonna meet on this or who's going to be appointed to this.
Anybody want to go with me? It's a matter of setting it up first.
I do not mind.
You don't? I'm
Nope.
done. I'm
Let's
fried.
see how it
That
goes.
would be great. Because then there would be some balance. And otherwise, it wouldn't.
Yep.
That would be true.
Good for you both. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so
Have a great
we've
summer,
done,
folks. See you in August.
Yeah, see you next month.
not that far away. Tax anticipation, EES restructuring plan, hiring. Hey, we're moving.
We still have one.
Mark, we skipped you. Would you like to say anything about what's going on at the
I'll just give a
school?
few updates on some building projects. The one major one, as you know, is the wood pellet boiler project, which is quite an undertaking. So at this point, our original boilers have been removed from the guts of the basement, and 2 new boilers have been put in place, the wood pellet boiler as well as the backup propane boiler. Where we are right now is all the piping in the building is being taken out, so there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done in terms of all of the piping to be put back in, replaced, for the auger to be installed into the basement, and a room built to store the wood chips. So seems like we're about 30% there, I would say. So still quite a bit to do. Myself and head custodian Eugene Frost have been working along with Frank with Chris Hebb, who engineered the project. And then we've also been in contact with Eli Gould, who's a local building contractor. And we're looking at additional thermal upgrades that would support this project. So we're looking at developing specs for bids for window coverings, replacing skylight windows, and exterior doors. So those are being developed and will be put out very shortly. And I'm really happy to have Eli helping us out. He's a local guy, has a tremendous amount of knowledge in this area, and we'll be consulting with Eugene, myself, and Frank on a as much as we want basis as we move forward with some of the more thermal upgrades within the building.
And that's not at an extra cost, then that was included in our total package?
Yes. And then the other thing is our other major project is replacing a failing retaining wall and then extending it on the west side of the building above our school garden. And that project is going really well, and it looks like over the next week and a half, probably get wrapped up. But we've made a lot of good progress over the last few days. If you drive down Green Street, you'll notice. And I think that'll be a really nice addition. And then some other upgrades, which I can touch upon in August as they further develop.
Mark, you said the project is about 30% done?
I mean, that's my
Yeah,
guesstimation.
okay. But it's still, will it be done, completed
On track.
before the start of school? Or are you still seeing, obviously,
I'm
we
thinking,
we won't need wood pellet use in August, I'm so hoping that it's warm.
Could have
but-
used it 2 days ago.
I'm anticipating that we will be working on the project into the beginning of the school year.
Okay.
But the hope is that all the radiators and the piping in the classrooms will be completed, so that work that is still going on will be like controls and finishing work in the basement. So hopefully, I don't think we will have people in the building working within the hallways and classrooms during the school day. But I think the project will be wrapped up during the school this fall, for sure.
Okay, so next 2 items, all I have left, unless anyone else, well, we kind of skipped policy council, I think is
we're good
okay.
on the committee reports.
Energy, finance, anything from finance?
No, we're meeting.
Are you in finance?
Yeah, no, we're not meeting, we're meeting in August.
And diversity.
17th, yes.
Diversity's nothing right now, right? So that brings us down to planning meeting and the confirmation of next meeting's time and location, next agenda items. So the planning meeting, we need to look at, particularly Spoon has pointed out, we have been sometimes erratic this spring here since he's come in, of figuring out when we're gonna meet next. So we definitely wanna look at our year calendar. Lyle, you sent me one that I've never
Yes, I did.
responded to.
That's okay.
So we have a rough draft that we'll look at this next time anyway, for the year. Some years we've had other things that we really wanted to look at, some training that we've done for board members. I don't have anything on my plate in front of us that I think we need to worry about. Is there concerns that you want training in any part of the board process?
I'm not standing up to
No, I know.
say anything.
Just- I'm still asking. Yes, no, or-
I didn't have anything in mind with trainings, but is this the planning meeting where we talk about our goals for the next year at that meeting? Not
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next meeting, we look at goals and we look at our schedule. So for example, a goal that we set last year, we talked about trying to get a good feel for how to address poverty and what we want to do in our position as elementary schools and preschools. And one of the things that came out of that was moving forward with the elementary or the preschool in our elementary schools for Oak Grove anyway. And we talked about the need for the social worker, and we put that in the budget and hired that. So those types of things we set as goals, and then we move forward with plans.
Are we working up an agenda for the planning meeting?
Yeah, that's all in this meeting, planning for planning, and next agenda items, all in the
Yeah.
same thing.
I am very interested in talking about the role of education. The role of education, maybe I'll just stop right there. The purpose of education. I mean, this is, I'm going to pass something around. Oh, here it is. It's something that just, I think you've all actually seen this before. This comes out of the 2015 study. It was, I wish I copied the first page of it, but it was something, it was a PowerPoint that it was handed to me. It was what you gave me, Lyle, at the meeting.
Yep.
You remember what the name of that was, 2015?
It was a board
training.
board training book. I went to it in Springfield.
It looks familiar.
Yeah.
All right.
Can't remember.
Well,
off the top.
in any case, I copied pages 8 and 9. And on page 8, education quality standards. And the 4th bullet, global citizenship. And I don't want to talk about that now. But that little point is having a dramatic and deep effect on everything that's going on in education. And so that really bears. On the next page, on page 9, the top box, mechatronics at North Country. There's a statement that they attribute to a boy at the North Country Career Center. What was the Agency of Education trying to tell people with that statement? And in that statement, if to go is almost, as I see, the core of what drives. We talk about, as I ask people what's important about education, and they say, almost everybody says, we need to teach kids to think. And what that statement seems to be saying is trying to tell everybody automation is a good thing. Well, automation also creates, or is creating, doesn't have to, but it is creating enormous poverty because so many people are out of work or don't get paid enough. And that poverty is creating so much, is forcing us to do so much what we, to do, it's changing the children that are coming into our schools to be educated. More and more, it's not just, as I'm learning, we go from special education goes from nothing to an enormous part. One social worker goes to 2 and 3 and 4, all dealing with problems coming from poverty, and the poverty coming from a philosophy that we don't question.
So I don't think that was it there. I think it says, do our students have access to opportunities for proficiency-based learning, 21st century skills and personalization? I think that's what it's saying is the 21st century skills, and that
That they're
comment
now-
down there is that was in the 19th and 20th.
And it then goes on to suggest that those skills are programming machines to do the work of people. And in fact, that's what you hear all over the place. The future is high tech. But in reality, 90% of high tech are people trying to assemble these machines in factories and other people trying to sell them. And most of the jobs are low paying and really stink. So this future about is that what we are training our kids to do, is to sit at factories and make electronic equipment so that more people can be laid off?
So I guess we can look at that more next meeting as part of the planning and have a discussion of the role of education. We'll put that on the list, the role of education. We'll look at,
There's something I'd like to put on for the agenda for next month, which is, I know on the town side right now, there's a big initiative to diversify the workforce, and there's a community equity collaborative committee that Lyle's a part of that's looking for specific ways to do that on the school side as well. So I'd like to make that one of our board goals as well, and I can bring more stuff in discussion for next time, but just to write that down on the agenda.
so diversification in employees, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and curriculum.
Both, okay.
And we will be, this year, this fall, in November, the state will be putting together a team of educators from the area to come in and look at how we're progressing with education of our students, what we have in place for programs, how we run our schools. It's called Integrated Field Review. Julianne and I are hoping that we will have more specific information for that. So if we do, we'd like to be able to have a little time to just talk about it.
Okay. Administrators, do you have anything that you wanted on our agendas and planning we want to look at? Mark? Andy says no. Mark?
Just update you on like our school action plans. I think that's probably good practice.
Well, maybe you could have the school action plans sent to us.
Yep.
Deb, anything from you?
I mean, we can have further discussion about expanding pre-K collaborations with Head Start. It seems to be a hot topic these days.
I think it might be nice if we talk a little bit about our intentions for how long before we put it in the other schools and how that, what might need to happen in order to get that
Yeah.
to happen, and just look a little bit ahead. Okay.
I have more to.
Oh, good. I didn't look that way. Thank you, Kim.
Two other things that I'd like to have on an agenda. One is to talk about an annual report, unlike one that has yet been done. My feeling in brief, if anything is going to change, it's going to need the support of the community. And the community is only going to support it if it's fully informed. And I'm feeling that our community is not fully informed, and I think there are ways we can do much better.
Okay, so
doing that.
annual report changes is what we'll put on.
Yep, or experience, whatever. And the other thing I want to talk about is creating a study that may take a lot of people and a lot of time, and to actually determine how good our education system in Brattleboro is.
I think we have that.
Well, I'm thinking, you know, we know how many kids we graduate. But then again, but what I'm thinking is that we find the kids from 1980, 1990, and 2000 and do a survey from which we can try and learn how successful they were in life, because that's what really tells us how good our education was.
Well, that tells us how good it was in 1980.
No, because in 1980 we only know that we moved them out of our system.
But the education that they received here was happening
different.
30 years ago.
That's right. So how well, the whole point of education, is it not? To prepare a kid, to send a kid out as an adult
So-
to be able to lead a good life.
So I'm gonna put down that we could talk about measurements that we're using.
I was 10 in 1980. Here I am.
She made me smile.
Measurements that we're using to grade ourselves, or how do we say that? To evaluate our
Effectiveness.
effectiveness. Efficacy.
Impact.
Impact.
What is it?
Impact.
Impact. And we could just look at what we've already got going on, and maybe off of that, maybe we'll have some ideas that you might want to add on to it as well, or discuss further the specific one. More ideas for the planning, or I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Could you just
No?
confirm the date of that?
Oh yeah, let's confirm the date.
The 27th at 3? Oh, no, 20, not 27th, 23rd, 23rd.
August 23rd.
I was confusing 17th. 23rd at 3.
And where is that?
I don't know, did we decide where we're having it?
Oh, I thought we always have it at one spot, but I don't know that we've confirmed that that is even available, Deb, at EES.
I can look, that's our in-service training block, so I will check to see if the staff room, the conference room is available.
Yeah, I have it down from 3 to 7 on Wednesday, August 23rd at EES, but I'm not sure we ever
Okay.
threw that to you. You might not have been here when we made that decision.
And Jill, I have just one more quick announcement that we have a couple of budgetary requests that we want to first vet through policy council and then the board. One being that we are going to ask for one-time funds for some playground issues, equipment. And the second is that we have some carryover that we need, or two separate pots of money that we need to request permission to keep. So I will send that electronically after the policy council considers it.
And that would be money coming from our budget?
It's money that we have in our budget that needs to be, that we're not, that's extra from our budget that closed in February.
For the playground?
No, the playground would be separate money. Often it's actually money to abate some of the playground at Bird Street, which I won't get into because it's long and involved. But the feds often have extra money in their regional budgets for things like that. And so in the decision, their budget year ends September 30th, so we want to get our application in, and that would be a separate pot of money that would pay for that particular project.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
Anybody else? Any discussion? All in favor, or
Aye.
just go home?